Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brody Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to today's episode of A Healthy Curiosity. I'm your host, Brody Welch, and with me today is Dr. Pedram Shojai. I have been wanting to talk to Pedram for quite some time because I find him an incredible inspiration, not only because he's a fellow Chinese medicine guy and Qigong and meditation teacher who's making a tremendous impact on the world, doing something beyond just the typical running a clinic and teaching classes, but he's someone who really seems to be living his values and doing work that the world desperately needs while having a lot of fun. He's a philanthropist. He has produced several documentaries. He's a New York Times bestselling author of The Urban Monk and has a new book coming out this fall on the art of stopping time. He is the founder of well.org, and he travels around meeting inspiring people who are making a difference. I had the pleasure of meeting Pedram last month at a conference, and I'm just so grateful that he's willing to take time out of his busy schedule to talk to me here today and share his wisdom and his path here with us on A Healthy Curiosity. Pedram, thanks so much. Welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here.
So I'd love to know how you got from working with people as a clinician to doing the kind of work that you're doing now. Like, what did that path look like for you?
I think it has to do with me being inherently lazy, actually. I just got tired of repeating myself. I realized that so much of what I was saying every day in, day out with, whatever it is, 15, 20 patients a day running through the clinic. Back in the old days, I was seeing 30 to 50 patients a day. It was all pretty much the same conversation. And really it kind of collapses upon a simple question is like, how you living? Right? It's like, how's your sleep? How's your exercise? Are you moving around? Are you eating real food? Are you eating, like a smart person would? How are you managing your mindset and your stress? And, as I started to find the commonalities and all the kind of disease processes, it would all still collapse back down to a simple question around lifestyle. And, if you're going to live like an idiot, you're going to come in here and pay me money to fix things. And if you're going to be wise about how you live, chances are a lot of these health concerns are going to start to go away. And so I started doing videos, and finally I just got pulled into filmmaking and made my first film I started in like 2010. And then, as luck would have it, it did really well, and it pulled me into a whole other universe.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. Like, in Chinese medicine, we have this idea that there's one cause and 1,000 diseases that come from that one cause. And certainly people living out of balance, it's like that is doing too much, not eating well, not having a meditation practice or a Qigong practice. Like there's the solutions for a whole multiplicity of conditions that people are struggling with come back to the same stuff. That makes a lot of sense, that it's time to step into the role as teacher and educator, as opposed to, as you said, like just having people outsource their health to you all the time.
Yeah, and if you look at like the healthcare profession, it's kind of like we all, work in a MASH unit. And so I was sitting there just, dealing with bumped and bruised bodies every day, thinking I was making a difference. But unless you actually negotiate an armistice and stop the war, the body's going to keep coming in. And I realized, the actual, the definition of the word doctor in Latin, docere, is to teach. Right? So, I realized it's not to treat, it's not to diagnose, and it's certainly not to become a drug peddler for the pharma companies, right? And so, as you start to realize what your responsibility is as a physician, you got to start swimming upstream. And the goal of any noble profession, as it said, is to put itself out of business. And so, for me, it's like, I keep banging, my knee hurts. So it's like, well, stop banging it into the wall. Right. And so, there's a lot of that happens in our culture. And, I decided I was playing small ball and I needed to step into it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what got me into producing online courses as well, recognizing that it's like to really empower people, like it's on them. And so teaching people about what they need to do to take care of themselves. And that's segued for me into online coaching programs to help people actually bridge the gap between what they know they need to do and actually doing it. And it's really rewarding when you see that change for real. I'm curious, you're working with people who are stressed out, tired, living beyond their energetic means, dipping into their reserves, which in Chinese medicine we associate with the kidney energy, right? Like that's our jing, our reserve power. And changing patterns, changing how we're living is no small task. Like it's really hard. And it requires a certain amount of will, which also lives in the kidneys, which is also depleted by kind of that living out of balance, doing too much. So I'm curious, as a teacher practitioner, where you've had the most success in getting people who are like already depleted to realize that, like, do this hard thing, like find the will to stick with a practice and clean up your diet, get enough sleep, and just that what works in terms of getting people in your experience to actually start doing some of this stuff.
So if you look at will as kind of like a watering can full of water, and that water is your jing, your essence, and your jur, the kind of the spirit of the kidneys, which is the willpower. We bank it up and then we spend it and then we feel like losers. And so if you look at how the actual, and this is great, I get to like kick it old school and talk about our stuff here. So I'm having fun already. Is
good.
If you look at the system, the Taoist system that all this came from, the jur, or the will of the kidneys, is also complemented and balanced by the shen, or the spirit of the heart. So it's a heart and kidney communicating issue in Chinese medicine. And what that means is the real kind of key to manifesting things and making stuff happen on our planet, or just in life, is not just having willpower, but coupling your will, your kidney energy, with the heart, the fire energy that could be translated to focus or attention. So it's intention and attention together really starts to bring heaven and earth together. It starts to blend fire and water, and that kan and li energy of the kidneys. And this is the whole essence of alchemy, is really the basis of also honing in your focus. Because what I'll find is most people are so scattered in their focus that they will, basically commit to too many things, put themselves in time bankruptcy because they don't have enough time to do the things that they've already said they've committed to do, and then take on more things. And their focus is so scattered that their willpower just drips out until they feel like they got nothing left. And so for me, I think Milton Erickson said it best. He's the founder of modern hypnotherapy. If someone asked him, hey, what's it like putting people in trance all the time? He's like, I don't think you get what I do here. I spend my entire career trying to take these poor people out of their trances, right? And the Buddhists call them hungry ghosts, right? And so what happens is we're all walking around like zombies, committing time, energy, and money in our life force to too many things, distracted from what we think, what we say we want to do. And because we lack the focus and the clarity, our willpower, our jing, our life force just gets sucked right out of us, whether it's for the new purse, the new car, the trip we think we need, or just saying yes to a dinner instead of going to the gym, right? And so that lack of focus, I think, is leading to this scattering of the human spirit.
Yeah, exactly. So getting people to really figure out what's important to them and to build their lives around watering fewer plants in the garden.
That's it. And so for me, I use the metaphor of a life garden. If you only have room for 5 or 6 plants in your garden, what would they be? Is it your career? Is it your health? Is it your family? Your hobbies, whatever that is. And so then you do like an accounting and really look at, okay, well, how much water, how much time, energy, resource, money, whatever is needed for me to actually have these 5 plants be thriving, right? And then how much time is left for anything else, if any, because anything outside of that, would be considered a weed. And so we all just need to do a little bit of a reconciliation of what we say we want, and then where our time, energy, and money go. And then in doing so, that's where most of our lost power is gone. Because look, I started the other way around, right? I'm a Taoist abbot. I've been teaching Qigong. I've studied all this Jedi stuff my whole life. And so all these people would come in and I'd teach them how to cultivate energy. And I realized I was kind of like the lottery system. It's like, here's $100 million and they come back in 7 years and they're broke because their spending habits were egregious. right? And so if you could clean up the spending habits and get people much more mindful about where their energy is flowing, then you you plug up the hole, then you start filling up some energy and people are like overflowing and exuberant and their health comes back. So I started reverse engineering it.
Yeah, really, really important to stop doing the bad thing. Stop doing the harmful thing that's taking you down before you can really cultivate and fill up the well. One of the things that I struggle with in my personal life is that I get excited. So I talk a lot about yang addiction, right? Being this profound illness in our society. Like our society values the speed and productivity and being busy at the expense of resting and being and enjoying our lives. And we're focused on the externals and the doing aspects of who we are rather than how we feel or our inner lives. And that I find that, like, even though I'm teaching this stuff and talking to patients about how important it is to like meditate and do Qigong and eat real food and get enough sleep, that it's like an addiction for me. Like I will bite the hook of like, I feel the creative juices flowing. I'm excited about something new in my business that I'm trying to create. And it is like all these values that I really deeply and sincerely hold, they go out the window because it's just like literally operating from an addiction. Like it's the only thing that matters is getting this thing done. I'm curious if that's something that you've ever wrestled with, because you obviously have a lot of irons in the fire.
I wrestle with it every day, right? I mean, I'll tell you right now, of course I do. So just right now, I woke up this morning a little sniffly. I don't know, like one of my kids was sneezing on me yesterday and I woke up a little sniffly and raspy. And, an hour and a half from now, I'm in a sound studio recording the audible version of my next book into a microphone where my voice has to be impeccable. And I'm like, and I look down I look down the barrel of my schedule going like, dude, I don't have another slot to do this. Mm-hmm. So, suck it up, rest up your voice, get it wherever you need to be. And so, it's a commitment that I've stacked. Now, how much better would I feel if I said, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm flaking, but then where do I kick that can down the road? Right. This is reality. It's a contract I signed and, I gotta get it out before a deadline. So look, I live a normal life. I'm a householder. I run a very big company. I make movies. I deal with these things every day. And, sometimes it's an addiction. Like if I'm sitting around browsing my social media while I'm sitting there supposed to be with my kids, then shame on me. And if it's something that I've committed to that I need to do, then I just suck it up and do it because you know what? Work is work. And so, you just got to get better with commitments. Like, would I be overwhelmed if, I didn't have a raspy voice? Of course not. Am I overwhelmed now? No. But you know what I mean? Like it's going to take a little bit more chi from the bank account here to force the voice through. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Sometimes life happens and it's inevitable. And hopefully you have, what is your strategy then? Like when you're having to kind of dig deep?
More Qigong. Slow down more, right? So I will sit there for about 20 minutes before we even start and just meditate and catch my breath and tap into that place, that infinite place where energy is abound. And then I'll just remember to stay there, right? Because I might not get as many words out, but I will definitely come from a place of depth and sincerity. As long as I stay under my breath, like I'm a backcountry backpacker and, you put 50, 60 pounds on your back and you start hiking as fast as you can on day one, you are dead. Like you're on the side of the road panting. But if you start nice and slow, kind of work out the wiggles, kind of stretch a little bit, stop and stretch, get things going, don't plan on putting in too many miles on day one. By day 2 or 3, you're flying up and down passes because your body is now there, but never allow yourself to get out of breath, right? Stay under your breath.
That's a beautiful, beautiful description of how to live. In addition to Qigong, I'd love to know what else comprises your morning routine or the things that you need to do for yourself in order to maximize your productivity and your focus.
Yeah. So, currently I just finished a Qigong, that was 100 days where I did, no grains, no dairy, no coffee for 100 days, plus 2 different Qigong sets, a couple different kind of conversations with God, journaling practices that I've been playing with, and 15 minutes of meditation in the evening. I'm busy. Like that's 15 minutes is all I got. I got 2 young kids and a movie and a book coming. And it was good. I just finished it. So I'm trying to, figure out what I want to do next. But, for the last 20 years, there's been kind of this core Qigong set that I do every morning before I pee. And the reason is twofold. One is the first thing that you mindlessly do when you roll out of bed typically is you stumble over to the bathroom and go pee. Or, now it's even worse. People just lean over and check their social media feed. And so what I want to do is intercept that zombie, dumb mind first thing and bring it into the light of awareness. And so I do a practice and grab my attention before it starts, going into automatic activities. The second piece, which is, kind of an alchemical piece, is you lose a lot of qi through your kidneys at night through your urine. And so what you do, this practice actually really helps you kind of reabsorb some qi and also kind of build some lower abdominal pressure and drive energy up what's called the Baxton's plexus, which is kind of an ancient circulatory pathway that runs up from the sacrum all the way and dumps kind of excess fluid through kind of a venous pathway directly into kind of the area of the brain where the pituitary and pineal live. So there's all sorts of really cool stuff that's happening kind of in the internal kind of spiritual anatomy through this practice. And, I won't start a day without it because, I don't stand a chance without being connected into, that higher source.
For people out there who might be lost on the esoteric stuff, just the idea of Qigong gets your mind, your body, and your breath and the movement all united. And so it's a way of accessing our full intelligence as a being, right? Because we have intelligence in our body, and being able to unite our intention with that and with the breath. It's a potent combination for being able to be in our full capacity as conscious beings.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, look, everything else is stacked against you, right? Like advertising is making you feel like you're not worthy and you need this product in order to be whole. And, the whole, everything. It's like the world is so dangerous. You need us to protect you. You need to give away your liberties. Like just the entire meta narrative of the media and the government and all that is to disempower you. And so if you don't have a personal practice that integrates your mind, body, and spirit and brings the nexus of decision-making, control, and clarity, squarely back to you and have your consciousness kind of wake up to that, then you're walking around like a zombie and, good luck.
Absolutely. Well, and even like if you're engaging with the world, even just checking a social media feed, like that can be really derailing to figuring out your own personal purpose and your own personal values. It's so easy to get caught up in just the subtle influences of what's coming at you from your friends or the people you follow or from whatever. And it's like, yeah, that is a recipe for not having a day that's in touch with a deeper purpose.
Yeah, and most people start their days that way, and they continue their lives that way, and it's no way to live.
Right. So you just mentioned kind of like advertising it being part of the noise that's out there that takes us that sets our priorities for us. And you are, I know, passionate about this idea of conscious capitalism, which I'd love for you to talk more about. As when I was a kid, I from the age of about 11, I was quite depressed, and a lot of it stemmed from this sort of existential conflict that I felt that like just being on the planet, just growing up in the suburbs, like made me automatically complicit in stuff that I thought was truly evil, right? Like the fact that you have to like drive a car and poison the planet to get anywhere, to like buying food that was either produced by a huge corporation that just wants to sell me stuff, or clothes made in sweatshops, or mistreatment of animals, or just all these things. And as like an 11-year-old, I remember feeling like there's no hope. Like these problems are so entrenched in our society. I didn't really see how anything could change, but I did what I could on a personal level. Like I stopped eating meat, I stopped buying things that I knew were harmful, and like voting with what few dollars I had back then, and felt like I needed to do this in order to feel right with being alive. And it just was like, just that feeling of complicity is still, I still find it problematic as an adult. But anyway, I'm curious as to how this became such an important pillar of what you do and what that path looked like.
Well, I mean, I just followed the breadcrumbs from my first couple of movies. I started looking at what's wrong with the healthcare system, and how the incentives aren't aligned to actually help people. And then in that, as like, why are people so sick anyways? And it's just like, oh wow, look at all these chemicals and additives and crap that we've added to nature that are now making us sick. And then kind of like ended that on you vote with your dollars as a premise. And then I followed that in the third movie. It was just like, look, if this is actually a reality that can be, leveraged for scalable change within our lifetimes, what would that look like? And, the enemy is that very thing, right? The belief system that you talked about, which is, I'm so depressed because the world's problems are so big. What am I going to do about it? Little old me. And what you didn't realize is that, your conscious choice to stop eating meat, your conscious choice to be more careful about your money and where it spends, actually was watering flowers that have now become much more robust. And now we can see them, and more people are drawn to them on the planet and are bringing their water to them. So, it's a myth that you can't. The entire economy is built on millions and millions of micro decisions that are made every second, in the form of transactions, in the form of eyeballs, in the form of everything, right? That's monetized. And so every little thing you do makes a profound difference, but we're made to feel small, and the world's problems seem so big because we're looking at the bad news networks. And so for me, I followed the founders of, Seventh Generation and Whole Foods and the Container Store and Guayaquil and a lot of these companies. It was just like, holy crap, these guys just held it down and, just did what was right. And now look at where the organic industry is. Now look at this, look at that. And it's just, what? The writing's on the wall. All we need to do is keep doing that. And all we need to do is have better tools. And so I created an app. I created all kinds of tools and resources for the viewers of my movie to be able to then just, take this on and have actionable steps they can take to make a difference. Notably, one of them is just get your money out of these big banks that are investing in death and destruction and war, and basically creating a terrible climate on the planet with our money. So, I've just moved my money to conscious banks that are FDIC insured and do everything the other ones do except poison the water and except, run, darkness on the planet. So there are so many stories of hope that I've captured that have just been really inspiring in this project that it's been wonderful.
That's awesome. It's awesome. And this is the movie Prosperity, right?
Yep.
That you have coming out soon.
Yep.
What does the next version of you look like? The upgraded version of me gets great sleep, experiences abundant energy and flow, loves her body, and gets a ridiculous amount done from a place of centered presence. The thing is, the same habits that got you where you are aren't necessarily going to get you where you want to be, and it's tough to change habits on your own. It's so much easier to have some guidance, accountability, and supportive peers who will help you raise your bar. I want to help you off your plateau, to help you bridge the gap between knowing what you need to do to take care of yourself and actually doing those things, like dialing in a daily body-mind practice, getting enough restorative sleep, eating what your body can best digest, and moving through life at a pace that feels easeful and in integrity with your own energy. If you feel ready to step into the next version of yourself and really prioritize the essential habits of self-care necessary to step into your most thriving self, I hope you'll join me for 11 weeks to level up your life. The next round of Level Up Your Life starts in September 2017. Just after the kids are back to school, you're done with your summer travel, and you're ready to really upgrade your life, to do the fall differently, to go into the holidays stress-free. If that might be good timing for you, I'd love to hop on the phone and see if it's a good fit. Go to brodywelch.com, head to the Level Up page, and click the link to schedule. At the very least, it'll help you get clear as to where to put your energy in order to feel how you want to feel. We absolutely need every reminder we can get that it's not hopeless and that our individual decisions magnify with the decisions of other conscious people who get that. First of all, like, what I really appreciate Chinese medicine for, the idea that we're this ecosystem and that we're not really even separate from our ecosystem. Like, we have our internal world, but our internal world and our external world, you can't have healthy individuals without healthy water and without healthy air and without healthy plants. And it just, all of that we really are deeply connected, not only in some sort of like spiritual or esoteric sense, to each other and to the planet. Physically, what makes up our bodies, what goes into who we are, we are tied into the environment. And it's so important. And that being able to just like get a different sense of what it is to be self-interested. It's like it implies this walking this path of voting with your dollars, really taking care of ourselves by taking care of the planet, by taking care of each other.
Yep, that's it. And you know what? It's as above, so below. The famous Hermetic axiom, right? Is, every single thing, show me how you do one thing and I'll tell you how you do everything. And so from the microbiota in your gut to how you interact with the people on your street, it's all coherent. Once you realize that, then you start behaving like a symbiotic creature, not a parasitic one. And, the model on the planet, is very extraction oriented and it's very parasitic. And so you have to fix that by creating the healthy ecosystem that supports life within you. And then you become a life affirming creature that then helps support life all around you.
Awesome. And so this app can help with that?
Oh yeah. The movie, the app, all of it. Like, I've been working pretty hard for a couple of years. Like, I'm tired. But we've put a lot of effort into making sure that we get tools and scalable solutions kind of in front of people. Because one thing to educate, boring. It's another thing to inspire. Okay, but now what? Right. So it's been a lot of work. It's not. I don't want to just lead the horse to water. I want to lead a thirsty horse to water and make it delicious water that they want to call all their friends to come share. Right.
It can feel like a privilege. Making healthier choices can feel expensive, right? Like organic food tends to cost more money. A lot of times that's not a choice that people feel like they're in a position to make. But what you're talking about before about just like moving your money out of a bank that's investing in destruction rather than something that isn't. I'm curious if there's any other things that are low cost that people can do to be part of the solution.
Well, I mean, look at the basic stuff first, right? Like if you're standing in line at Starbucks to spend $5-6 on some frappuccino thing, right? Just look at what that is in relation to what you could be doing in terms of buying some shade grown coffee from the grocery store that goes, that has a few less middlemen in the way. You save a couple bucks and you're helping, a village keep a rainforest up, right? Yeah. There's every single purchase decision has something like that around supply chain around it. I mean, where you bank is critically important. But also, when you're supporting organic supply chains, I mean, the reason why, in the making of the movie, Whole Foods got bought by Amazon and, people are like, what's going to happen? I'm like, dude, I think it's great. It's going to bring that much more purchasing power to organic supply chains because people who've been demanding organic and paying more now have it to the point where there's pretty much parity. Like you go to Thrive Market, you go to some of these places, you could get, organic at the same cost, if not less than conventional now. And that started because some people were willing to pay more at first. But you know what? There's an on-ramp and eventually, there's enough people and sentiment and innovation. The prices come down and then, it just becomes a better world. And we're seeing it, over and over again, everywhere.
You brought up a really important point that people are already investing in things like Starbucks, like that just by their daily actions, they're investing in it, like that choice is a form of an investment in a world that we don't necessarily want and in health that we don't necessarily want. A lot of times in getting people to invest in themselves differently, to actually take care of themselves, maybe invest in a class that's going to teach them how to take care of themselves, or invest in getting some acupuncture or something that maybe insurance doesn't cover. People's objection is often like, that's so expensive, but it's like, what are we already investing in that's taking us in totally the opposite direction of where we want to go? Like that needs to be considered, like that we're already spending stuff that's out of sync.
Well, and that's why I tend to really go hard on trying to get people, and I haven't been in practice for a while, obviously. I've been, kind of become a media guy, but I try to get people to learn how to garden very quickly. Because you know what? I have things right now that I'm, enjoying putting into green smoothies every morning with my kids that I planted 4, 5, 6 months ago in my garden. And so you just intrinsically understand that when you're gardening is like, if I'm putting a seed in the ground, I know that I'm investing in green smoothies several months from now that I'm going to really enjoy. right? And so when I tell people's like, they're like, well, that's expensive. It's just like, dude, how can you afford to not be healthy? You don't have your brain, you don't have your energy. Like, what do and so it's just the problem with how advertising works, the problem with how politicians run their jargon and all this stuff is it's all about compressing time and making everything stressful and about now, immediate decision. Like, get into your amygdala, get into a stressful mode and make an immediate decision despite your best interest right now because I need your money. And that's really all the why is, right? And so what it does is it drives us to make terrible decisions, and it's trained us to be these idiot monkeys making dumb decisions based on scarcity and time compression that isn't actually there. That's why that's why you got to learn to catch your breath, right? Because it's all a trap.
So you just use the word time compression, which seems like the opposite of the art of stopping time, which I know is your next book coming out. I'd love to hear more about that. What is the art of stopping time? How can we get out of this pressure to make an instant decision that's not going to be in our best interest and come from a deeper place?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been talking about this thing called time compression syndrome for years, which is stacking too many things on a given timeline that is reasonable, so it creates this thing called stress. And so most people in the modern world live in compressed time. And so, there's a couple of solutions to that. I talk about it in the book. One of them is learning how to stop time, which is, slowing your breath, dropping into your lower abdomen, dropping into this eternal place where you realize that your immortal self is your consciousness that goes way beyond your body, and really getting into a place where you understand that everything around you is just, kind of circumstantial and is flying around, and you can choose to react, right? And so that's, meditation 101, right? But the other side of that is also, just effective time and event management. If I were to have committed to 3 other things right now while I'm doing this podcast with you, I'd be like, dude, hurry up, ask your next question. I got to go. And I'm like, I'm not present, right? I can't hang out with you. I can't be here. But I mean, think about that example in what we do with our given days, right? We compress things in our timeline, and then we're like, how the hell am I going to get to all this? And we get this thing called stress, right? And everyone's like, oh, man, I'm so stressed out. It's like, well, if you manage the flow of your time, if you curate the events that you say, for me to say yes to something right now in time means I'm effectively saying no to things that I had already committed to and said yes to, right? And so I got to be very careful about the things I commit to, because I've already committed to my wife, my kids, my career, this movie that's coming, there's plenty of things I already have kind of booked on my timeline. So I got to be really cautious about what else I stack. And most of us are terrible at that. So that's also, kind of a through line in the book is like, again, same thing I said, like with Qigong, it's like I could teach people how to cultivate energy, but they're going to spend it like idiots. So I got to teach them how to be more mindful of their expenditures in energy, in time, and in money. And then all of a sudden, abundance and prosperity come back on all fronts.
Yeah, exactly. Like when people are living in integrity with their own energy, the stress goes away and the burnout goes away. Like gardening, like every yes implies a no, and getting really clear on what we want to say yes to is hugely, hugely important.
Yeah, I mean, and just in that life garden example, it's like, okay, I'm putting tomatoes here. Well, I was going to put cucumbers on top of it. And, you know what? I want some avocado. Well, that's a tree, right? And so it's like, well, you know what? What is it? You want tomatoes, avocado, or cucumber in this plot of land? If you have more land, then great. You're rich. That's abundant. Move on to put some over here. But you got to work with what you got. And so, some of these things just require decisions. You're like, okay, well, that's where the tomatoes grow. And they're not going to be here for 3 months. So just keep watering them and be patient.
Then that requires a kind of clarity that I think you can't get without some kind of a mindfulness practice, like even figuring out what you want to grow in your garden.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's to me, I went through this huge arc of being a monk and becoming a priest and an abbot and all this stuff. And then I went into healthcare, became a CEO of a medical group. And, I was basically doing lots of things in healthcare, had, thousands of patients running through our clinics because I thought healthcare was going to fix people. And I realized that I was way, way downstream. And to swim upstream, it was like actually all the meditation, mindfulness, consciousness stuff that I learned on the cushions and in the monasteries that actually changed people's health, because you have to change people's minds so that their health changes, right? I can't give you a diet that's going to change your life. I can teach you how to change your life, and then your diet becomes a foregone conclusion.
Exactly. And some of that in Chinese medicine, to geek out on that while I have a chance, this idea that our qi and blood needs to be flowing all the time in order for us to be healthy and vital. And that when we become kind of fixed in our patterning, and we kind of are these like mindless zombies that are doing the same things over and over again because we have a sense of who we have to be in the world that's maybe like an external expectation that we don't even buy into at all, like making a lot of money or becoming, quote unquote successful as like your parents might have defined it, or even just being that person who's always like can always be counted on to be overworking or overserving or that kind of thing. That's a form of blood stasis. And when we're putting all this energy and blood running in the same ways and that gets stuck, that leads to my favorite Taoist master teacher, Jeffrey Yuen, coins the term psychosclerosis, like a hardening of the psyche around who we think we are, and that limits our vitality. And it's the kind of thing where like getting people to really change their lives can be a tough thing, but to get the energy to flow differently, starting at the level of consciousness of like really like who do you want to be in the world? What are you here to do?
Yeah. And I think most of us will take on an external definition of what success is, what happiness is. It's me on a boat with a bunch of girls in bikinis, right? Like, think about what TV portrays as like the good life, right? And then think about the things that you actually enjoy doing and actually, bring you happiness. And there's usually a huge chasm between the false promise and the reality. And so you got it. Like, to me, those are all mental viruses, right? They're memes that are infectious. And I love the psychosclerosis term. That's great. I haven't seen Jeffrey in years. So it's nice to see he's still rocking with good wisdom.
Yeah, he is.
And, it's exactly that, right? It's taking on code that is flawed instead of tapping into the essential nature of who you are, following your bliss, and then rewriting, basically like scrubbing all that code and just, coming from this place of like empty mind and purity of, revelation happens when you empty yourself. And so I think that there's a lot to be said there, but I think, we're at a point now where we need nothing short of a cultural exorcism, because there's so many dark, demonic thought forms that are just not tied to reality that have infected us into thinking what life is supposed to be, so that we're not actually experiencing life as it can be, and what it truly can be is something that emerges from within.
That's the work then in terms of doing this exorcism is going to be each one of us going within. Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way around it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there's no other way around it. If they put it in a pill, they're lying. You know what I mean? Like, it's just everyone's trying to sell a shortcut. And the answer is wake up, step into understanding who you are, ask the bigger questions, and question everything.
I love that so much. Pedram, I know you have a lot on your plate today, and I really appreciate your time. The movie Prosperity coming out soon, The Art of Stopping Time, your book coming out soon, well.org, an amazing resource for people. Anything else that you'd like people to know in terms of what you're up to or where they should go to learn more?
No, you can get it all at, well.org or theurbanmonk.com. And just a parting thought is, no one is going to fix the world. It's you. Fix yourself, then fix the world. Help yourself, then help the world. And that means make every single decision to be a life-affirming decision, something that's going to bring you more vitality, bring you more clarity, focus your attention, hone in your willpower, and help you manifest the life that you deserve to live. And then what spills off from that is you become an amazing person in society, and it becomes infectious. There is no shortcut. Step up, step in, and live your life fully, and start now. Amen
to that. Pedram, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodywelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.